Sam Heughan has had to put up with a lot over the course of his acting career, but a great deal of his bad experiences while acting have come on the set of Outlander. While he has never had to go through anything quite as bad as, say, Jackie Chan or Tom Cruise, he has had to do some pretty disgusting things that have caused him to disagree with the crew and even walk off set. In today's video, we're going to be going over those moments, so stick around because you won't want to miss a single second of this video. First up, his first big disagreement with the crew on Outlander. I'm sure some of you are imagining that actors get to have their way a lot when it comes to filming scenes, but many of you would be surprised to find out that it is often not the case at all. While the actors get the large majority of the fame when it comes to a show or a movie's success, a great deal of their performance comes from the direction they receive from the director, producers, and showrunners. And the performances on Outlander are no exception. Sam Heughan has really made a name for himself on the show, and while that comes from his natural acting talent, he has had to be directed by the crew to do a scene a certain way or say a certain line in the way that he did not intend. Well, one time, during a scene that was shot for the third season, he actually refused to do it, as he believed that it was rather dumb. The line actually came directly from the book series in which the show is based off of, and the author of the books, Diana Gabaldon, was literally in the room, which makes it even funnier to me. The scene in question was when Jamie is trying to save Claire from drowning during the shipwreck that takes place in Season 3. As the ship is going down, and Claire is seemingly going down with it, Jamie heroically does whatever he can to save her, and while he does this in the book as well, he also says a line that pretty much makes no sense. He says, "Sassenach, if you die on me now, I'll kill you." Honestly, I have to agree with Sam on this one. This line is incredibly dumb. It reminds me of a line from the second Avengers film, Avengers Age of Ultron, when Chris Evans' Captain America tells the team, "If you get killed, walk it off." Literally, the stupidest line I could think of. In both cases, professional writers were paid good money to think up and put down those lines and then expected people to like them. In Sam's case, I agree that he shouldn't say that line, and convincing Sam Heughan to say a line or do something that he doesn't agree with is difficult, as he is incredibly protective over his character. Of course, it didn't matter, as he does end up saying the line as it was written despite his protest. He even told the showrunner and the author of the book that he didn't want to say that. This incident did not result in him walking off set, like another incident that we are going to talk about in a bit, but it did cause him to sit in a pool for a few hours and try to convince everyone that he should not say this line, as it is just something that nobody would ever say. On top of that, the line simply makes no sense, and if I were him, I would have walked off set before I said that line. But of course, he didn't walk off set, not that time anyway. Next up, the time Sam Heughan actually did walk off set. Now, I'm no actor, but I could only imagine that it takes a super big ego or something really disgusting or degrading to force an actor to walk off set the way Sam Heughan did during his time on Outlander. But after you hear what made him walk off set, you will probably understand his decision and even agree with it. So this incident also took place during filming for Season 3, and it actually took place just days before they filmed the shipwreck scene that caused Heughan to disagree with seemingly everyone on set. But during the third season, Jamie and Claire are on a boat for quite some time sailing the open ocean. Of course, this causes Jamie to get seasick, and there is a scene that I'm sure most fans of the show will remember when Jamie gets seasick and throws up on board the ship. Well, for those of you who don't know, the green and foamy liquid that came out of Sam Heughan's mouth was not CGI or some good-tasting concoction. It was actually something that I'm sure anyone would find gross after a while. The puke mixture that the crew came up with was whipped up egg whites with some flavoring and green food coloring in order to make it look like frothy puke. It already sounds gross, right? Well, Sam was on board to put this in his mouth and throw it up to make the vomiting look real until he realized how many takes they were going to have to do. It took them more than 10 takes to get the scene looking real enough for the director to accept the scene as finished. But of course, by the fourth or fifth time, the egg mixture was starting to become repulsive to Sam, and with good reason. Imagine having to put something in your mouth that feels and looks like vomit, and then being forced to actually vomit it up multiple times. Eventually, the taste and feel of the fake vomit, combined with the action of vomiting, probably would make you want to vomit in real life, right? Well, of course, that was exactly what started to happen to Sam after just a few takes. His mind started to convince his body that he actually was sick, and it caused Sam to actually get nauseous, to the point in which Sam did not want to keep going. Of course, he had to, as it was his job, but eventually enough was enough. Sam walked off the set and made his way to his dressing room, where author Diana Gabaldon met with him to ask how he was doing. He replied, "I've been throwing up in a bucket all morning, and now I think I'm really going to be sick." She asked why it was so awful, and he revealed that it was designed to be tolerable, which is most likely what made it intolerable after a while. He told her they flavored it, they put green dye in it, and it was terrible, it made me gag. What was obviously a tough day for Heughan made for a convincing seasick scene in Season 3, so at least for the crew, it was all worth it. All of the ship scenes were rather difficult to shoot, as they wanted it to look as real as possible. Sticking with the third season of Outlander, it is revered as one of the best seasons of the show due to its amazing-looking sailing sequences. It is hard for cable shows to make something as difficult as sailing look real without actually sailing due to the relatively low budget they have when compared to movies or bigger shows that are backed with money from streaming services. But for those of you who have seen the third season, you would know they crushed the sailing sequences. And the crazy part of it all is that none of it was real. They didn't even have the boats in water when they shot the scenes. In fact, the entire sequence was shot in a parking lot. That's right, it wasn't even in a pool or on sand or anything. It was fully made in a parking lot that was actually full of cars at the time of recording. They didn't even bother to empty it. They just put massive boats on trailers, drove them to a large parking lot, and the rest is history. What made a parking lot such an ideal spot to shoot is, of course, the fact that in a certain direction, there was nothing for a few miles, which gave the impression that they were on the ocean, as all you see is sky if the camera is in the right place. Moreover, in a parking lot, you never have to worry about other cars getting in the way or any people walking by, so keeping the location clear was pretty easy too. However, when executive producer of the show, Toni Graphia, saw the location, she was completely underwhelmed and thought it was going to look a lot cooler than it actually did. Graphia explained that she imagined that there wouldn't be as much CGI as there actually was, and that more of the scene would be real. She said, "When we saw the first pictures our crew sent over, it was just these big old wooden jalopies in a parking lot. They weren't in the water. I've been doing this a long time, and I know there's movie magic, but I guess a part of me was like, they're going to be on the ocean. I saw them and was like, oh yeah, that's right, they don't actually go on the water, but it had to be a parking lot? I thought they'd at least be on sand. They had cars parked all around them." That's all we have for you guys on the channel. Thank you all so much for tuning in.